It might, it might.
Or right, past the water fountain. She's not staying? She isn't staying.
Are you seeing? Yeah, so what did you change there? Of course, it's always something that stupid. Okay. Let me know if you want any more or less level than you're getting right now. They might be further away than I'm talking. Okay. If you want more or less, I can adjust that level, just, or, and I'll do it. Cool. Okay. Are you good if I mute this? Okay.
And the board is going to go into an executive session. It shouldn't be a very long one, hopefully. And we would like to invite the superintendent and the assistant superintendent.
Excuse
And the
me, you're
rest of
going
the
in
board.
executive session right now?
Yes, ma'am.
Would you like to adopt the agenda as corrected first, please?
Of course we would. We would
Thank
be
you.
glad to do that for you. Do I have a motion to accept the agenda?
So moved.
Do I have a second? Okay, thanks, Colin. Yes, and we are going to invite Nicole to come into the executive session with us, please. Ready? Let's go.
We didn't have
No,
any
you-
motions.
you-
We have
Yeah.
to,
Oh, I thought we did
We
have a
have to-
motion.
we have to
So,
move to
let
find.
me, I'd like to clarify.
Yes.
So, Mrs. Lemire asked to add the session. And so then you adopted the agenda as corrected.
Right.
Now you need your two motions to go into executive session.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sure. I move that the board enter executive session pursuant to 1 VSA 313A to discuss the labor relations agreements with employees.
Isn't that your second motion?
You
Well,
need to
she's
move,
saying
you move to find it,
I
and
move to
then
find.
move to
Go into
go
it.
into.
Go into, okay, so you say that then.
I don't have it in front of me, but, yeah, I'm looking for the email. Do you have the ones written?
Yeah,
Okay.
that's what I just read, Jeremy.
Oh, then, no, see, the first motion, I move to find the premature general public knowledge regarding
Yep.
labor relations clearly places the board at a substantial disadvantage because the board risks disclosing its negotiation strategy if it discusses this contract and labor's negotiations.
Are we good now?
I need a second.
Second.
And then follow up with your second motion, Kathy.
That's one. Oh, all in favor, please say aye.
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 All opposed? And the ayes have it.
Okay. So now it is 6:09. Okay. That's it?
You got all that?
Okay. Nicole, you'll come with us?
We still need a second motion to go into executive session for labor
Oh, we did the
relations.
second motion.
The first one is just calling up the law that we're going to use to go into. The second one is specifying what the reason is.
Did
You
we
look at
not
me?
say that one? I thought you did.
Well, yeah, but you've got to make it a motion, somebody's going to second it, we have to vote on it.
I move that the board enter executive session pursuant to 1 VSA 313A and.
Yep.
It's not actually just that.
I further move to invite Kathy, or Katie, Aaron, and Nicole.
Thank
And
you.
I second that.
Good?
Yeah, I think so.
All those in favor?
All in
Aye.
favor? All opposed? And that motion passes.
Whew. There's a reason I'm sitting beside you, Colin.
That's right. Keep us straight. No action taken. Shall we move along? Governance process, report out, DEC and HSD meeting, Director of Facilities, Jonathan Garthwaite, there you are.
Hello.
Hello.
So I just want to point out how many people are here. And, whoa. I don't know, you tell me. Okay. And I'm not sure it's because I'm first on the agenda, but it could be. Thank you all for coming. Makes me happy. So on the agenda is to talk quickly. I know you have a lot going on about the PCBs and the APU situation. If I may very quickly just follow up on a conversation we had last time about the bond status. Since that meeting, we did post online. Jacob and I went through everything we have going on. There is a bond project status update post on the website. A couple very quick notes. On that, there is a column that says project value. The value on that page is all dollars that have either been spent, encumbered, or estimated for a given project. We're trying to capture the full breadth of it. There's a couple brief notes where applicable. And I didn't go into great detail, but again, as I always do, there is an email on there, facilitiesquestions@hartfordschools.net. If anybody wants to take a deep dive, they can do that or call me at my desk, 359-4610. So I just wanted to put that out there because we did talk about this in the last meeting, and that is updated for consumption. Moving to the PCB APU situation. PCBs, APUs, air purifying units. We have a proposal from the DEC to install some more in the schools. For those of you who are new to this, very quickly, we have a air testing program that's mandated by the state. We have quarterly air samples that are taken. That started for this quarter this morning. And again, if anybody wants to do a deep dive, we've been through that before, but if you're interested in learning more about that, shoot me an email. What that does is it determines if we have what's called a school action level or an immediate action level, which is either 100 nanograms per cubic meter or 300. Really, the way to think about that is if we have a school action level, it means we need to do further investigation and plan some remediation. If we have immediate action level, we have to do something other than what we're doing immediately. So we have been through, I want to say, 5 iterations of this testing at this point. About 18 months ago, the DEC installed 10 originally. I think there's 6 left of these air purifying units, which do exactly what they say. Those units were installed in areas that had either immediate action level exceedances, like the culinary arts space, or some offices in use that had school action level exceedances. Unfortunately, they were installed, but there was nothing was really done with them. There was no maintenance done, no kind of recording of their effectiveness. In some of the spaces that are unoccupied, they ran most of the time. In occupied spaces, folks were not real happy with them. They're not quiet. So we don't really have data on their effectiveness. After the last round of testing, the DEC suggested that we approve a work plan submitted by our consultant for maintenance of the existing APUs and the addition of 3 more. And so what that means is that proposal says that we will have a contractor come in, service them, change the filters 4 times a year. 4 times a year. And we will use those in those spaces where they are now and also add them to the spaces that are currently not in use because of immediate action level exceedances. What that looks like is the contractor would come in, it's kind of exactly what it sounds like. They'd come in, they would change the filters and plug the things in and put them running in those areas. In talking that through, it's one of 3 options that we have to deal with immediate action level exceedances. One is we just don't use the space, which is what we've done to date. If we have an IAL exceedance, we just don't use it. The other is to work with the Department of Health and come up with some sort of time-weighted exposure limit. We talked about that in a previous meeting, where they will say, okay, you can be in this space for 5 hours or 6 hours, and I'm not a scientist, so I don't pretend to understand how that metric is, but that's an option, we can do that. The other option is to install these APUs and measure their effectiveness at a later date. Some of the issues that have come up with that, the one that I mentioned before is the ones that were previously installed were not they were not monitored in any meaningful way to see if they were actually in use, running, plugged in, operational for X hours per day. The filters that come out of them are considered controlled waste. They have to be disposed of specifically, and there is a laboratory analysis that can be made of those filters that tells you what they're taking out of the air, that measures their effectiveness. We've not done that to date. And I can't go into what that process is because I don't know what it is, but I know that you can take the filters and make some assumptions. There is some maintenance obligations, both internal and contracted, that go with those units, and I'm just going to say shamelessly, I am very leery of taking anything else on for our people in terms of just dealing with these things, because we just don't have a lot of bandwidth. So if we go that route, we need to be careful and make sure. I would rather, for something this critical, I would rather under-promise and over-deliver. So we'd have to work through that. And then the contracting piece, we have to hire an environmental consulting contractor, the same ones that developed the proposal, and the sticker price for this annually this year is about $30,000 for the maintenance of the 6 that are in place and the addition of 3 more. There was some conversation, was that a week ago or 2 weeks ago? Was that 2 weeks ago? About
Last week with DEC.
Thank you, last week. About putting off the round of air sampling that we're doing right now and waiting until these APUs were in place. And there was some back and forth about whether we should proceed with air sampling so we have a baseline, and then should the board decide to put these APUs in, when we test in the next quarter, we might have some sense of the effectiveness of these units. That is all in the context of, I sent out to the board earlier, and it's available, the test data that we know we've talked about before. There are some anecdotal corollaries between air temperature and humidity and the air PCB saturation levels in the air. That is true. The effect of these APUs on that, we don't know yet. So there's the question of, do you want to put these things in and have them running? And some of you have heard them run. Some, we know what they are. How do we determine the effectiveness? And I think that's in coordination with the DEC. The relationship to those units between air sampling and how that gets kind of collated into the data set we already have related to air temperature and humidity and all that is something to be considered. And then the final point that I will make on that is related to these APUs, is at some point in the next month, you're going to get the ECA, which is the evaluation of corrective action alternatives. We've talked about that. That ECA will have several options to deal with remediating PCBs. It is likely that the installation of APUs will be one of the options that you are choosing from. If it is not the installation of APUs, it will be based on their effectiveness and looking at ventilation and dealing with, are we going to deal with the PCB problem as a air quality issue, or as a contaminated material issue, if that makes sense. And you all are gonna have to make that decision about whether you're remediating PCBs in the air or you are doing an abatement to get rid of the contaminant materials in the building. So this APU question, moving forward with this work plan, it's a $30,000 annual cost. That's this year. Much like the air sampling that we do now, that continues until we don't have PCBs in the building. So there's that kind of iterative process. And then there's the implications of, to the ECA. You know, is this the route we're gonna take? So that's the quick version of what the DEC has proposed for the work to be done related to EPUs and kind of an assessment of the implications. Does that make sense? Anybody have questions about that? Any of that?
I do, if no one else does. In my reading of the couple hundred pages that you provided, I think I took the $28,000 price tag from Fuss and whatever his name was, O'Neill, as a quarterly charge, not an annual charge. So I want confirmation that we're reading that correctly. You are.
So, yep, so,
You don't have to do that right this second.
yep, so we can confirm costs.
Okay. In the material, I think it was a DEC document that suggested that for these air purification units, if they were used to deal with PCBs, then the pre-filters were to be changed monthly, not quarterly. So that's different than what Fuss is
So
quoting.
you are correct. And that is to my point about what we can do versus what we hire to do. That, you know, for those of you who were in that meeting with the DEC, we talked briefly about that.
So
My preference would be to, if the DEC is leaning into the effectiveness of these things, you know, this is very selfish from my chair. I would ask them to own it because I don't have the staff, nor do I have the expertise
I was getting to that.
to do that, right? So,
You showed me one of those units the other day when we toured the high school, a couple of those units, and they're very noisy. They have long extension cords. They have controls that a student or teacher could fool around with. In my mind, there's no assurance that the things are going to run the way they're supposed to run all the time that people are occupying the space. Or are they supposed to run 7 by 24 and not be touched by anybody? And then the quote from Fuss is that your staff will pick up all the units and concentrate them in one room somewhere in this building where an environmental contractor will take over, clean the units, replace the filters, and then leave them stacked there for your staff to return them. And I would ask, does anybody on your staff have any environmental certification or training that would teach them how to correctly handle them? You know, when one of those units gets tipped over as it's being put on a two-wheel dolly to move to the central room, and it spews all the PCBs it's collected for the last 3 months into the space that it was supposed to be filtering, what's the corrective action that's taken, other than the janitor saying, oh, damn it, and getting his vacuum cleaner out and cleaning up the pile of dust, which then travels everywhere else in the building. So I don't see any upside to our staff being at all involved in the process of managing these units. I don't think the units are adequate. They're noisy. I think the teachers are just going to turn around and shut the things off when they want to have the kids concentrating on whatever it is they're communicating. And I think the cost of it's going to be a lot more than what was quoted, because the filters should be, the pre-filter should be changed every single month.
so that's a lot of statement, and I think there's a couple questions to answer. But first, I want to say, no, we do not have environmental consultants on staff. But I will say this, I am absolutely confident that if we trained our people, they would take it seriously and do the right thing. I'm not gonna ask them to do that tomorrow, but they wouldn't, nobody's gonna knock something over and not take it seriously. They absolutely, I'm sure of that. I need to defend some integrity here a little bit.
No,
Not having-
I probably was
yeah.
jumping to a
No.
conclusion there, but the point I was trying to make is, I don't want us, our people, responsible in any way for handling that toxic waste.
Yes.
Somewhere down the road, we're gonna have a problem, and the environmental contractor is gonna say, the problem occurred because your people didn't do something according to Hoyle.
So if I'm hearing correctly, I'm trying to, I'd like to have action items. So one of the action items for me is to confirm that annual cost, all in, including all manufacturers' recommended or required maintenance of these units. Is that accurate?
Right.
So I can do that in an email. The other thing I will confirm or ask them to take on is that all, if I'm hearing correctly, all associated maintenance, calibration, cleaning, moving, be done by an environmental contractor, not by us.
Let me interject one more thing. The manufacturer says they shouldn't be maintained while there are people present. They should be maintained after hours. Fuss and O'Neill is quoting for 8
Well,
to 5 daytime
Their,
maintenance on these units.
their plan is to take them all out to an easy pop-up tent in the parking lot and do it out there.
Yeah, I think it was some room number in their document.
But I can, so those are 2 points that we can clarify. With regard to, as you said, the noise and whether they're running or not, I don't have any way to know if people unplug them or turn them off or turn them down or adjust them, but there's no way to know that. And one of the and I'm paraphrasing the question from that meeting, as I said, is there any way to put some sort of like meter or runtime something so that we could say, this unit with these specifications ran for this amount of time, here's that report, here's, and that's not something that they have done previously. And I don't know if that matters. I think, the question of whether or not to proceed with this work plan, it sounds like there's a couple of questions to answer. The question Jacob had, which I won't pretend to speak for him other than to relay the conversation we had, is if, we're being asked to pay for this and go through the same reimbursement process. My understanding is the DEC has the authority to review work plans for procedural and all the regulatory stuff, but at the end of the day, it's up to you all what we actually do. It's up to the district what actions we take. So I can't say, I don't have the expertise to say whether these things work or not, and I don't have the insight into the funding mechanisms of the state to say whether we'll get whether that annual funding, much like air sampling, whether the reimbursement for that annual expense once we start will continue to be reimbursed. I don't know. So I guess, I came here tonight to explain this, thinking I'd call the state tomorrow and say we're going to or we're not going to, but am I hearing there are questions to answer prior to that, or what's the next piece here?
I have some more questions.
Yep.
So this report here,
Yes.
I'm just looking at room 113, 115. I'm assuming they're near each other, and there are times where the numbers close, times where they diverge.
Correct.
So these have obviously been sampled, but these rooms do or do not have APUs in them.
Yes.
Okay.
You are reading that correctly.
Okay.
One of the, and I'm sorry, I don't mean to be snarky about it, but one of the tricky things that we've been struggling with is we do these iterative quarterly air samples. And depending on a number of factors, the air temperature, the humidity, even the use of the room, people in and out, doors open or not, the granularity of the air sampling is such that you can have the same room pass or fail either way, and you can even have adjoining rooms, as you saw there, with one pass and one fail. That has been the struggle with using air samples as the metric for action.
And in terms of the APUs, they are or are not in all of these rooms?
They're not in all of these rooms. They're in spaces. So to your experience, when we toured the other day and we went into culinary arts, into the getaway dining, those APUs were running in there because we had an immediate action level exceedance. So they've been running in there to try to bring that IAL down. They have, as of these tests, they have not done that in that space. But in fairness, I can't guarantee that they've been running the whole time. Do you understand?
I understand. Next question. So if there's going to be 2 months-ish, a bunch of options presented to us, and one of the options may be, let's do APUs, why isn't this presented as part of the options in a couple of months?
So this is a work plan for targeted APUs in areas where we have an immediate action level exceedance. We have to deal eventually with even areas that have a school action level exceedance.
So this is not for the school, this is for the immediate action?
Correct.
Okay, and so if we, clear what happens if we do, if we don't do this, what happens?
If we don't do this
If we say,
this
right,
plan,
right.
then we default to the other two options presented by the state. One is to work with the Board of Health to get some sort of time-weighted use. Yeah, you correct me, please jump in if I misspeak. We have that option. The other is to simply continue to not use those spaces.
Okay.
And there's currently the health sciences classrooms, the culinary arts space, a couple of adjacent utility spaces in the kitchen hallway there, and one space on the second floor, 215, I think, that is currently not in use. So
I'm sorry, is the idea that if we do spend this $30,000, those spaces now then become available once the scrubbing happens?
No guarantee,
No guarantee.
and no data to back it up.
well, I mean, again, in fairness, like I'm always going to defer to the scientists at the DEC because I'm not that, right, at all. So in fairness, my approach to this is very, very elementary. Like, I like simple data. So I like the fact that we're sampling right now, right? Because that will tell us what we did it in the gym, we did this whole list of spaces that we've done over and over, and that will tell us in some period of days, this is the PCB level in the gym as of this date. I like knowing that. And this goes back to, town meeting 2 years ago, where if I open all the doors and turn on the fans, it will be something else the next day. These APUs are kind of a microcosm of that example. If we put one in one of those rooms, it may have a positive impact on air quality, and that will be measurable. The tricky part is, and this is where the science exceeds my understanding, the tricky part is in determining factually, is that APUs, air temperature, humidity, space use, all these other factors, and I can't speak to that. It's complicated. This is, your assessment of that table that I gave you is accurate. It's not, these air samples are not consistent, and that is part of the thing that makes dealing with PCBs so tricky and challenging, particularly for the folks who are leaning into the science. It's not a piece of asbestos that you can say, stay. And don't touch it, and it's fine. As long as it's not friable, it doesn't hurt a thing. This is different.
Does the board have any other questions?
Nancy, I've got a couple more.
I'm sorry?
I have a couple more.
Please go right ahead.
Does everybody understand that deploying these units or not, we are still on the hook to develop a plan to remove the PCBs from the building? sorry, to remediate.
So you will get, the middle of April, the ECA document that will have options for dealing with PCBs. Removal of PCBs is one of those options. Dealing with air quality is one of those options. And I don't know exactly what methodologies will be employed, will be recommended by the state, but you'll have a suite of options to choose.
What I read in here suggests that these air handling units are just a temporary knee-jerk response in order to get access to some spaces right away, but that there needs to be a permanent solution to the PCB issue in that space, or in every space.
That is correct. And these units could be a component of that solution, or by their efficacy, they could suggest that more robust ventilation is part of that solution. Like, it's a complicated, the solution depends on what you're looking for, right? I think the question that you're asking, or maybe I'm not going to tell you the question you're asking, but maybe I'll just tell you. If the board's desire is to improve to manageable and defensible levels the amount of contamination in the air at any given time, ventilation is a viable option. We will monitor it forever. We will have filtration units forever, and that is true. And that's what some places do. That's an option that you'll be looking at as part of the ECA, that you'll all have to absorb and consider. Another option is to take all of the contaminant materials, the source of this outgassed contamination, out of the building. Now, I think we can extrapolate which of those is more expensive. And that's something that, I think I can say, again, without overstepping my technical knowledge or my understanding of finance in Vermont, what is likely to happen is that at some point, you will examine this ECA, and the state will say, option A makes it safe to use that space. The board may say, we want option C. And you all will have to advocate to get either the state on board for option C, or negotiate funding for the delta between what the state says. These APUs are a solution to air quality if air quality is your primary consideration. From the beginning, the board has said, and those of you who were here from the beginning, Nancy, the board has said over and over that they want to eliminate these materials. And so the questions that I have asked have been about, source materials. That's why I make the point so clearly that these APUs and ventilation deal with airborne contamination, not source materials. So to answer your question it's a solution if air is your problem. It's not a solution if materials are your problem. Right. And that's the board's decision to wrestle with.
Thank you.
Anyone else? On this table? No? So my question to you is, are you asking us to make a decision tonight?
That was my intent, but I'm at the, whatever the board decides to do is what I'm going to do. I mean, if there's clarification to be had, it's, I want, this is going to go back to the same thing I've said 100 times. First and foremost, I want everybody to be safe. And that's what we're doing right now. We're not using these spaces because we can't say they're safe. We're not using culinary arts. We're not using health services. We're not using 215 because we can't say they're safe. The other places where we have this managed and ongoing air sampling, we've checked that box. That's the most important thing, right? The next piece, kind of consolidating that list, the next piece is what do we do? What are the actions that we take to address the bigger picture? And this is an action that we can take. If you're asking me whether I have a deadline for getting back to the state, I don't. Those deadlines are for you all to calibrate and create. That's not, I always want answers. I always want an action item. I always want to do the next thing. But I would, you know, I'm also not the only one in those meetings. If I'm missing some component.
Nancy, you have questions in the audience?
Do you want to take a question from the audience?
I don't mind if it's not
I
you
will
know,
permit that.
antithetical to procedural.
Absolutely, I will permit it. Go ahead. Yes, please, and your name, and where you live. Yeah. Hi. Linda Satterley, Hartford property owner, taxpayer, and employee. Thank you. I have two questions. One, a clarifying question for you, sir. Are these units similar in size to the units we had recovering from COVID? I mean, according to the diagrams, they look about like that.
So, the short answer is some of them are very similar in size,
Okay.
and some of them can be larger.
Okay.
They're more robust than the off-the-shelf units we had.
Okay. Then my next question, sir, Mr. Butler, if you could clarify your statement earlier of teachers would just turn them off or we would trip over them or everything, because I take offense to that. Most of us had these other units in our rooms and we take the safety of our students very seriously. I seriously doubt any of us would turn those off or unplug them just because they were making noise.
I probably should have been a little more politic in how I made my statement. I'm gonna remember all the way back to when I was in high school, and the teacher always shut off the window air conditioning units to project a movie in the room. Now, there wasn't any health and safety issue there, but the teachers felt perfectly comfortable
Well, the
shutting
teachers
that
in this
stuff off.
district take our students' safety very seriously, and
Okay.
I'm sorry, I was very offended by that statement.
Okay.
Does anyone else have a question? What is the board's will? Do you want to make some kind of decision tonight? Do you want to have some more information given to us in a bit? And knowing that in April, we will be given some options, right? The ABC?
The ECA has been
Right.
promised by the middle of April.
Okay.
And now, if I may,
Yes, please.
one of the reasons the DEC wants to do this test is to inform the ECA process. They would like to be able to say that these units have some impact. So when you are looking at the ECA, right now, nobody can say yes or no. So that's something to consider.
So if we as the board say tonight, yes, we would like to go ahead and get these units put into the rooms, is that going to prevent us from being able to take care of all of the material waste that we have to get rid of and to get all the work done?
The ultimate disposition of the PCB problem in this facility is the board's decision to make. You know, we went through this, remember, a year ago about
Yes,
who
I
gets
do.
to say what the district does, and that's up to you all. What informs that decision is also up to you all. So I can empathize, and again, I'm looking at Aaron to correct me if I misspeak. I think there is something to be said for the scientists who want to know if these things are effective in this space. Is that,
Yeah.
am I representing their position?
Yeah, and
adequately?
one of the things in the meeting last week was they were asking us to not do testing as scheduled today, so that they could put it in there, put the units in there and get them going, and we wanted to get a baseline first. So that's why we have the testing that came in, so we can actually have a baseline to work from. But yeah, they would like to see the units in here.
So I'm gonna, if I may,
Please.
go out on a little limb, not too far, and suggest that maybe, you know, I would like to keep this moving forward. I think everybody would. I think that the state agencies involved would like to see some decision made on this. I also appreciate the clarifications, Colin, that you asked for. My opinion is just my opinion. I'm not a scientist. I can't tell you what works and doesn't work. I do think that no harm has ever come to anybody who had one of these things running. Like, they've been running off and on in culinary arts for 18 months. Nobody's been paying attention. Nobody's done anything with it. We haven't changed the filters. We don't know if the filters are toxic or fine, or we don't know anything. So from my opinion is, the more we know, the better informed we are, always, right? So in the interest of moving this forward and giving people, I'd like to believe they all came to see me, but I think they have other things on their mind. Perhaps a good way to move forward is if I take into account the questions that Colin raised, and I'm just gonna, I did make some notes. One is to clarify all annual and recurring costs associated with this program. Is that a good?
That's good.
Statement? The other is to clarify and confirm that all work associated with this program will be performed by environmental consultants and included in that cost. Is that?
Outside of school hours.
That I can, okay.
That was the recommendation by the manufacturer, I believe.
So just to keep things moving, I can tonight write a letter to, or tomorrow morning, write a letter to the environmental consultant who works for the board, who works for us, and say that this was discussed by the board, and the board would like those items. They would like confirmation of all annual costs associated with this program. They would like confirmation that all work associated with this work plan will be done by environmental consultants, not district staff, and would be done outside of normal school hours. Is that what you're? I don't know that they can do that.
And Jonathan, Fuss and O'Neill did say they were willing to do it outside of school hours. It's in here.
Yeah, no, I know,
Okay.
but it will impact cost, certainly. And that's fine, you know, that is what it is.
I'm concerned with staff and students.
So are there any other clarifications, qualifications, or requests that should go to them? Because what I'd like to do as quickly as possible is take all this stuff, get it to them, turn it back around, and kick it right back, so this doesn't become something we talk about on too many agendas.
I agree.
And also, you know, in fairness to the scientists who are pushing this at the state, to get them data, you know, real usable data.
But is this also an attempt at maybe future cost control down the road if they know that they can kick the can down the road by using air purifiers rather than remove the issue? Would they use this data to base their decision of our ECA later on, saying, well, you've already managed it with APUs, keep doing that? That's my fear, is that they'll use this data that we're going to pay for against us in the long run. And
So-
if that's the case, I'd love for the DEC to pay for it.
So I will try to respond in a neutral fashion to your
Okay.
kick the can comment. Whether or not these units are effective will absolutely inform the conversation about the ECA.
Yeah.
The decision is still yours.
Yep.
Right? If these things go in and they have no impact, that's true. If these things go in and we discover that putting 10 of them in the school has eliminated air quality issues holistically throughout, that's an important data point. You know,
Yeah.
neither one of those is going
Which
to
the
be true.
state would love, for sure.
Yeah,
but-
so I guess my point
Yeah.
is, yes, it will inform that conversation, but the decision is still yours. As far as the state paying for it or not, again, that's you know, the model that they have proposed is that this exercise, this work plan be processed the same way that the quarterly air sampling is, which is the contractor, the environmental contractor, it's a tricky process. The state tells us what the regulation is. We hire a contractor to develop a work plan to meet that regulation. The state approves that work plan, the contractor bills us, and we submit to the state for reimbursement. That's the process. So if what you're saying is you don't want to do that,
And we have confirmation that it will be reimbursable?
We, I don't,
Right.
but I'm
That's,
not.
so my fear is that we're gonna vote to spend $30,000 either quarterly or yearly. I think I've read it as yearly, but
Yeah, I think,
confirm it, and that it won't work, and then we've just,
Wasted
Well,
time
we
and
know what
money.
we know,
Well,
but
here-
it cost us
so
$30,000.
here's the thing, if it works or doesn't work, we've signed up for a year.
Yep.
It's not gonna be 30,000 next year. We learned that with air
Yeah.
sampling, it's gonna be more expensive, and that's just life.
Yep.
You know, it's.
Which, there's costs associated down the road. So we know the Culinary Arts is closed. The lease on the property that we utilize for them might go up next year, right? Everything gets more expensive every year.
Correct.
So I think
That is,
even for if we just move for air quality, I think, testing 10 years from now is going to be quite a bit more expensive than it is today. I think at some point.
I think
we
that's a
need
safe assumption.
We need to weigh the future.
So, again, being mindful of, if the board decides tonight that they want more information, I will turn that around as quickly as possible and get it back to you. If the board were to decide that they want to go full steam ahead, we're on the hook for the $30,000 fee, and some data will be produced. My understanding is, when we get to the ECA, you all are paying enough attention, I think, that you're gonna ask the same questions again about, if you installed these things, were they running? Was there a runtime meter? I'm not a scientist, I can't do the data. I can't run the test. Just like the air samples today, I got them into every space, I unlocked every door, I made sure they had power, but they set up the pumps, they collect the air, they analyze the filters, and they give us the numbers on that chart. I'm just the cruise director, right? But what I think will come up again, to your point, is the degree to which these things work tomorrow will be discussed in the context of the ECA. And it's that thing that, not to flog this point too much, but it really is gonna come down to, there is a valid point that they made in that meeting, and Aaron, if I'm counting on you to be my editor here, their interest is to keep people safe. Their interest is to mitigate the immediate hazard to students, faculty, and staff, and that is my interest too. They are going to say, they have said, that using these APU units might be effective in that effort. Fair, valid, right? And so there's nothing, I'm never gonna say it's a bad idea to do anything that might keep people safe. Whether it's a long-term solution or not, you're gonna have that conversation during the ECA. Right, and that's.
Jonathan, would you mind, I just think it might be helpful for the board's edification to remind the board when we can expect the ECA, what the ECA will
Yep.
include in terms of potential options, and who will be presenting the
Yep.
ECA. I think that could be
So,
helpful.
the ECA is the Evaluation of Corrective Action Alternatives. The ECA is a document that is created by the environmental contractor that we hired. We are paying them to write that ECA. Just like every other document they produce, it is reviewed by the state. However, the state does not, just like any of this, the state does not get to tell you what to do. So that ECA document that we're gonna get in the middle of April will be produced by Fuss and O'Neill. It will take into account all the data that they have available, and you all are gonna have to determine if you're comfortable with their analysis. And then they will say, these are the options that we think will address the existence of PCBs in your school. And it will be 3 or 4 options. The state will then say, we like this option. When that ECA is created, the process for presentation is, Rob Montgomery, the project lead from Fuss and O'Neill, will send me a draft, and my role will be to say, yep, you got the address right, at which point I will send it to all of you in draft form, right? And then you will read it, I assume, and digest it. And then Rob has offered to come into this room and answer your questions. The state will likely be here at the same time, and that is, you know, not to put it too bluntly, where the rubber meets the road. That's where the state will say, our assertion is you should do X, and you will all have to decide what you're gonna do. That's the process. And you know, that's I've said it over and over, that is the most critical piece. And really, that's a really tough thing. I am very much looking forward to the other side of that, because that's when this just becomes another construction project, which is what I know how to do. I don't know science, but I can build stuff. But the process is, you know, to your point, this I think, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, that one of the reasons that they wanted to delay testing was because the baseline pre-APU was probably different than the baseline after. You can make the argument that either one is a valid baseline, right? I'm not going to say which is valid. They both are.
Yeah,
right?
you change the environment, yeah.
Yes. But that, you know, in the middle of April, we will get that draft. It'll go out to all of you, and then that evaluation of corrective action alternatives, the board will decide which alternative to pursue, at which point Fuss and O'Neill will create a much more robust work plan than this. The state will review that work plan to make sure it meets regulatory, all that stuff. And then it becomes a project that we put out to bid and get a price tag. And that's when we start talking about all the things we talked about for the last 2 years. The implication, while we're doing this, what do we do? What do we do after? What do we do? But that's, you know, that the push has been to get that in front of you all as quickly as possible. This conversation right now is, to your point, it informs that process, but it doesn't duplicate it.
Is there any more discussion from the board? Any more comments? What would the board like to take for action tonight?
Sounds like getting the clarifying information, and Jonathan will send that back out to us where we can make decisions from there.
Is that good?
So my understanding is that I'm going to follow up on those statements that we just agreed on as quickly as reasonable. You know, it will be in the next week, and I'll turn that around to this group, and you can digest and do with it what you will.
And we'll make a decision then?
Yeah.
Yes. Is that what the board wills?
Yes. Okay.
Thank you very,
Thank
very
you.
much. I appreciate it. Board ground rules. This is something we've not had in the past. And I have sent these ground rules out to the board. I'll read them out loud for the moment, and then we'll go just a little bit further with it. So our ground rules would be: make a good faith effort to begin and end on time. Receive an agenda with all related information in context no later than the Sunday before the Wednesday meeting. Come to the meetings prepared by reading the agenda and So is it okay to go ahead and continue? Mike?
Yeah.
Okay to go ahead and continue?
It's back.
It's back.
Thank you. Okay, so Colin, do you want to make that a motion? Do you just want to make it does
it need
anyone
to be-
else have any feedback on this?
I mean, I think we can also look at what VSBA has,
Where this is coming from?
yeah, and, you know, if it more clearly defines some of the roles and
Mhm.
include that as well.
I would suggest going to several other school districts. Do we have a set of school districts that we use as comparables when we,
I'm sorry, say again.
do we have other school districts in the state that we've identified as comparables to Hartford that we look to see how
Sure.
they solve problems?
Yes, I talked to several of them.
So
This is
maybe
where
we,
again it came
maybe
in.
we'll look at a few other districts that might have a solution to this.
Okay, there are several other school districts that I did converse with, and we talked about the ground rules at that time, and some of the things that they do. So I am taking it that the board would like to table this for another opportunity to talk about later? Is that what I'm hearing?
That would be my choice.
I move that we postpone this matter until the next school board meeting.
Okay, do I hear a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, and the motion carries. Okay, thank you very much. Board committee assignments. Katie, do you want to address that one? Or do we just want to talk about it in general?
I think it's up to the board to determine which committees you'd like to continue with. The three committees listed are the three committees that have historically been committees of the board.
And they are required, as a matter of fact. So that's the Finance Committee, the Facilities Committee, and the Policy Committee, the Policy Development Committee. So,
Nancy, don't we also have a negotiation committee,
well, I have it,
or does that come and go?
that kind of comes and goes. It's not a,
Terms will end before the
Yeah.
next.
because terms, yeah. Jeremy said. There's another one that we could add for committee work, and that would be the resolutions. Our board has not been real active in the resolutions. I think that it would be a good idea for us to have a committee for the resolutions so that we could become more active in it. And the resolutions go before a resolution committee through the VSBA, and then each school district that is a member of the VSBA vote on those resolutions at the October annual meeting. And that's where the resolutions that would be adopted by VSBA to guide them for the next year. And those, some change, some don't change, some are added, some obviously, and then some are just deleted because they've, for whatever reason, aren't needed anymore, like things with COVID. That was a perfect example of some of the stuff that had been taking place in the resolutions before. So, Jacob is obviously on the Finance Committee.
I'll join it.
You?
I would like to be on the Finance Committee, please.
You do or do not?
I do.
Okay. And do you want to be on that committee too? Normally, because we are such a small board, you will be on more than one committee.
Yep, I'll be on finance as well.
Yeah, okay, great. Thank you very much. How about the Facilities Committee? I forgot who was on it before. I'm gonna last board?
He was-
Garrett? So, yes, sir?
We've lost our internet connection, otherwise I could answer that
Oh.
for you. But
We've lost our internet connection?
Wi-Fi?
I still have it. I still have the Wi-Fi.
Oh,
I do too.
Are you
So
on
I had
guest?
it when I went in that room and I don't have it. No.
Are you on guest still?
Yes.
Okay.
Is that where I'm supposed
We'll
to
get
be?
you a real one. No, you can ask for one with Eric now that you're official.
March 7th, 2025, facilities was Kathy and Jeremy.
We're asking finance. Do you have finance, Sherry?
Finance was Kevin and Kathy.
do you want to still be on the facilities or not?
Yeah, I'll stay on facilities. Sure.
Okay. Is there anyone else that would like to join the facilities committee?
Who is there at this point?
Just Kathy? I'll be on it with you. Doesn't scare me. How about the policy development committee? Jeremy, are you still willing to be on that?
Jeremy
And-
can stay on that.
Yes, Jeremy and Daniel. Anyone else want to join that one? Is there anyone interested in being on the resolutions committee? You would only meet about once a year.
I would do that.
You would like to do that? Okay, great. Okay, so those are the required committees. Board action, we identified them and we've I can't talk.
Formation.
Thank you. We formed them. Town liaison assignments. These are the ones that are not required, but that we in the past have always had people on. And the first one that we've got listed is the Hartford Community Coalition. That has been me in the past because I have been serving on their board since day one. I will be more than happy if someone else would like to take up that. That would require one meeting a month. You just go to the meeting, you report back to the board what's going on. They will ask you to join in on any of their ideas that are going through the community. It's a very worthwhile committee to be on.
I'll do that one.
Okay, great. We only need one person unless two really want to do the Hartford Community Coalition. The next one is the Hartford Committee on Racial Equity and Inclusion, HACTC. That was formed many years ago. They are still very active. They meet once a month on a Thursday evening. It lasts about an hour. Again, it's more of a liaison type thing so that they know where the board is coming, the school board is coming from, and gives us an opportunity to hop in and join on any of the programs or any of the activities that they will have going on during the school year. Is anyone interested in this one? Okay, I'll just stay on it then. Hartford Select Board. This is the fun one. We suggest that at least two people come on this because there is a lot of select board meetings. There is some very long select board meetings. And when Russell was still on the board with us, it was Russell and myself, and he would go to one meeting and report back to the board. The next meeting I would go to, so you didn't have to go to every single one, when it made it a little easier. And you can attend them, you don't have to go in person. You can also attend it just like we have ours online. You can do that too. There's really not, it's more, again, these three are more of the liaisons to see what's going on, to keep us abreast, and to keep the other local community activities that are happening abreast of what's going on with us. Is anyone interested in doing the select board? Are two of you interested in doing the select board and taking turns? Nobody.
No,
We
I
do
mean,
not have
I was
time
on
for
it
this
last year, and I was gonna say, the topics never really touch the school until
I
it's
know.
around budget time. It's
We don't
mostly
even have to have it,
liquor
because this is not a
licenses.
requirement.
Liquor licenses and parking meters is, we haven't put them in here yet, so.
Okay, so my question then is, does the board feel that this is not one that would be beneficial for us, our time and an effort to
I think
be
it's
there?
important to maintain a relationship there. I don't know if we need a liaison there for every meeting, but I know that we can attend any select board and approach them to add an agenda item if we wished.
Okay. How does the rest of the board feel about that?
Is it in policy somewhere right now that we have a liaison to select board?
No,
Okay, so let's just
that works for me.
put it aside.
Have your Tuesday nights back.
I have some others that you filled in the past.
Yes, please, go ahead with them.
HACTC,
Yes.
I would
the
like to stay on that.
The advisory board,
The which one?
HACT advisory board.
And you're gonna stay on that one?
Yes, please.
Oh, thank you. Yes, I have that on my list too. Kevin?
Equity,
That would be the Hakori.
okay. Is the manifest approval not needed? The finance committee would take care of that now?
Yes.
Okay. Community outreach we've had for a couple of years.
Right.
That was good.
That
what?
was
That was
Garrett and
Garrett.
Kathy.
Do we want to continue to have some?
On which one, please?
sorry.
Community outreach.
I'm sorry?
It's community outreach.
Oh, yeah, community outreach. Any interest?
Only when things go bad on Facebook. But I'm not on the listserv, so.
Yeah.
I've got one listed here as coalition. Is that one of the
I'm
ones?
sorry?
I have a,
Hartford Community Coalition.
Is that
Yeah,
the
that's
one you were
HCC's.
doing?
Right,
Okay.
yes, yes.
and on the manifest approval, that was done separately last year from the finance committee. But
Kevin did it last year.
Kevin did it last year.
Yes.
I would be happy to do it. If you want to sign it to the finance committee, that's also fine.
Yep, I would sign to the committee. That way we can have multiple people.
Yeah.
Okay.
At least
Multiple is a good
receive.
idea.
Right,
At least
yeah,
receive, but then we could have a designee again.
I agree. Yeah, I think that's from
You're
working.
the finance committee.
Not this year, you and Jeremy, is what we just said.
Yes, you and Jeremy are going to be finance committee. And Jacob.
Right, didn't you just say that? That's what I wrote down,
Okay.
Jeremy and Colin.
Yeah, yeah.
Yep.
So community outreach, is that going away?
No, that was one that you just,
No one
Community outreach is
volunteered.
different than the Hartford Community Coalition.
Yeah. I think that's we've talked about getting more community involvement and being able to work so that the community is more interested in what's going on up here. We haven't been very successful at it.
I would say the newsletter's been a success,
Oh, yeah, well, yeah, that is,
but
but not everybody,
I think we could take that on as the board.
as the whole board.
Yeah, we just can't email it together.
I like that. Okay. How's that suit with everybody else?
Board responsibility?
Yeah.
You also had the VSBA annual meeting, identified a person in March, and you had VSBA on your list last
VSBA
March.
is
I
mine.
think that's Nancy.
Yep.
Who was on VSBA, Sherry?
Kevin.
Oh, yeah.
That's
I don't, I think that when it's time for the annual meeting, you talk about who's going to go.
Right,
and make sure
exactly.
that you do the
Yeah.
motion to give them
Right.
permission.
I always go and the superintendent always goes. We encourage all the board members to come. We've got it knocked down to it's just a one-day affair, so you're not having to miss but one day out of work to go to it. The district pays for the board to go. We always elect in March, as you said, the representative that is going to be going that will be on the voting end. Each district gets one vote. So, I don't know, Kevin was it for a long time, and then I kept getting nominated, I think, because I serve on 3 of their boards too. And the resolution is one of the committees I sign in that I am on with VSBA.
Can I ask a question of clarification?
Of course.
Sherry, did you say VISBIT though? Because VISBIT is the
Yes.
insurance
I did say Visbit.
entity.
The insurance.
So I
Yes,
think that's a
annual meeting.
different liaison. It's
Yes.
the school
Right.
insurance.
Right,
So
yeah. I don't
different
remember
than
getting
VSBA.
reports from VSBIT
I
as
don't
such.
recall that last year. Yeah.
Do districts typically send a board member or an administrator?
I think it depends. And typically, Jacob and I
Mhm.
are active in VISBIT.
Any further discussion on any of this?
So, finance, you had Mr. Christie and Mrs. Lemire, and since you don't have any settled contracts, you don't think that it's important to have negotiation committee? Sorry. I'm reading my list incorrectly. Negotiation, since you haven't settled any contracts yet.
Yeah, I'm gonna stay on it, for the act, so that would put me, Nancy, and Kathy on them.
Well, let's just continue.
It's a continuance of the
Yeah.
existing. We can move to add more people when the next contract runs out.
No, thank you.
So negotiations is 3 of you?
Currently,
Okay.
Any further discussion? Sherry, did you get all of the ones that we chose for this year,
I'm all set,
our
thank you.
volunteers? All right, Katie, sorry. Report out on the education transformation, please.
Thank you. I thought it would be helpful for the board, but also the community, to get a bit of a preview in advance of the education panel discussion we're having on Monday. Also an opportunity to shamelessly plug the event.
Please.
So,
And we're gonna have food.
there will be food. So just a reminder,
No, sorry, wait a minute. Not
That's not
food
the-
on
yeah.
Monday, food on Wednesday. Sorry, wrong day. We're gonna be in the auditorium, we can't have food in there.
So I shared in the district newsletter, and we've been continuing to share out the press release that Senator Major put together for the event. The event will be held next Monday, March 23rd, from 6 to 8 in the auditorium at the high school. So some of the things that I just wanted to give the community and the board a bit more information about is some context in advance of the panel discussion, as a way to help inform the discussion and in case, and I hope that we have good attendance at the event, and people feel free to ask questions and engage in the discussion as well.
Katie, could you tell them who else is gonna be there?
Yeah,
to
I
help
think
answer those
some of the,
questions?
I hope I'm not misrepresenting the participants, because I do think that there have been some changes, but last I knew, we have Rebecca Holcomb, who will be there, former Ed Secretary and rep from Norwich, Hanover. Senator Major is going to be moderating the conversation himself. I'm going to be on the panel. I believe you are, Nancy. Sherry Souza, who is the superintendent at the Mountain View Supervisory Union, will be there. And then Esme Cole will be there, our local representative, as well as, who else?
Secretary Saunders.
Senator, or excuse me, Secretary Saunders will be online, so she will be Zooming in to that panel discussion. And then I don't know that we got confirmation from some others yet.
Okay, I don't know about it.
Yeah. So it's going to be a really enriching conversation. And some of the context that I thought would be really helpful to share with you tonight is just to get us all up to speed on what's happening with Act 73. So this is just kind of a reminder of where we have been and where we currently are. So as we recall, at the end of the legislative session last year, the legislature adopted Act 73, which mandates school consolidation as the premise of changing over to a funding formula, and in creating, in their view, more efficiency to lower taxes in the state. So there have been a variety of iterations since, and I think as we recall as well, there was a redistricting task force that came out of Act 73 that convened this summer, and they were charged with basically coming up with some different versions of district mapping that could then be presented to the legislature in January to start them in the session. For those of you who weren't keeping track of their work, that's not what they ended up doing. They heard from a lot of community members across the state who were not in favor of consolidation, and certainly not in favor of consolidating districts to the scale that the AOE and the governor were looking for. And what they recommended instead were basically what the legislature is reckoning with now, which is offering what are called BOCES, which is Board of Cooperative Education Services, and they would exist regionally and allow different districts to access them for a lower cost, basically trying to avoid what's happening currently with duplication of efforts that are leading to a lot of expense. That didn't go over well, that the redistricting committee did not put together maps for the legislature's consideration. And now where we are is after our town meeting day cycle, when I think the last percentage was 85% of district budgets passed. I think there's opposition in the legislature and this consideration that perhaps communities were not actually asking for the scale of consolidation that has been supported by different entities in government and in the legislature. So some of the structural barriers, in addition to what is amounting to some political will, is also thinking about what do we do with debt service is one question that has been proposed to the legislature as a barrier to further consolidation. Districts hold a variety of different debt that has not to date been a part of these conversations. And in fact, to my knowledge, there's not a general understanding of where those districts are and how much debt they're currently incurring, and what that would mean if a number of districts were to merge together when a few of them have debt service and some of them don't. There are also barriers that haven't yet been discussed in relation to transportation, which is an enormous part of our budget in this district. So that hasn't been discussed, and that goes hand in hand with geography and thinking about what makes the most sense in terms of how big would these districts be? How much time, ultimately, what it comes down to, as far as, I can speak from the VSA's perspective, the superintendent's, what that would mean for a child sitting on a bus trying to get to school. As well as thinking about staff and how far are we asking people to drive, right? What do these commutes look like? Another barrier is certainly the local control and governance topic. Again, it's been, shared fairly broadly, both in the redistricting task force, but also just through budget votes and up to date, in some of the opposition coming from communities, that there's not a huge desire for local communities to relinquish control to different governing structures that they don't have as much access to. So for example, one of the things that we talk about at the superintendent's level is there's not, when you think about a superintendent overseeing some of these larger districts, that's gonna be an entirely different position, and certainly not one that comes with a very good understanding of local needs. And that is also true of school boards. So what the scale is looking like is that school boards would be more expansive. There would be a different process for selecting and appointing school board members. And again, you're relinquishing that local control that communities really value. A big topic in relation to this is school choice. That's in fact something that has really, I would say, caused great conflict in the houses of the legislature, the Senate and the House. And that remains to be seen in terms of resolution. So we'll have to see what happens with that, but that's a really big deal to local communities. Some local communities who currently have school choice right now and are worried that they wouldn't. And on the other side of that, with people being really concerned about school choice and the potential expanse of it. And finally, there's a community and culture consideration here, right? I know that I have kind of giggled to myself thinking about the fact that no one has considered mascots, for example. Good luck. So, when you think about culture, you think about identity, and that is at the heart of so many communities. So I think when a lot of people are talking about governance and local control, I think that is not being discussed and should be, because that is definitely a non-starter for many. All right, so there have also been one proposed map coming from the House that was basically a conversation starter is what it was deemed by Representative Peter Conlin, who also serves as the chair of the House Education Committee. So he put out a map. That map included 25 districts, and the scale was about 2,000 to 3,000 students per district. And all across the news, immediately, it was met with skepticism. And again, even though the scale was smaller than some of the other maps that had been proposed, people were still like, whoa, too big, too fast. So the next slide will show you the map itself. And just so to orient us a little bit, we're kind of like the navy blue. That's the line of that is next to the royal blue, and above that kind of darker gray on the right, kind of lower. Yep,
Yeah,
thank you.
thank you.
Right next to that, Zach. No, there you go, perfect, thank you. So that map that Representative Conlin proposed would put Hartford with Heartland, Windsor, Weathersfield, and that they're all in the Windsor Southeast Supervisory Union. So that's where that conversation starter would place Hartford in that 2,000 to 3,000 range of students.
That has since been changed. I don't know if you knew that. What they're proposing now is this, and this.
That's the Senate's
Yeah, that's the
map.
Senate's map.
Yes.
Yes,
Um,
and
so-
there is another, I forgot what it was called. This just came out yesterday. That there is two different people now, two different senators there, or representatives. And then there is also, just announced yesterday too, was another representative that came up with something that's not a map.
Yeah.
But that's not going over really well right now. They can't figure out how to make that one work. As we have said many times before, this changes so frequently and so differently each time that it's really hard to keep up with it and to make announcements for the public to know what's going on, because by the time we get the information out, it's already changed
That's
again.
right. Yep. That's
So,
absolutely right.
yeah.
But even considering this map, right?
I know.
If we're
but
looking at
still,
the geographic region
Yeah.
and we're considering some of those structural barriers that I just talked about,
Mm-hmm.
let's
I
talk
know.
about transportation, right? Let's
Yeah,
talk about
yeah.
debt service. Let's, all of those things are a challenge, and that is actually one of the smaller
Mm-hmm.
configurations than some of the others. So there's a lot of conversation about that.
Lots.
So you can move on to the next slide, please. Thank you.
Katie,
So,
before you,
sure.
it relates to the map, but you don't need to go back. Monday evening was a town plan commission meeting. I'm on the planning commission. And we're in the process of adopting Two Rivers Ottaquechee Regional Planning Commission's maps for the 30-town regional planning area. And somebody surprised me at that meeting by saying that there has been the conversation was about how few large parcels are still available in the town of Hartford for development. And somebody volunteered that the Regional Planning Commission has reserved an 80-acre parcel in the town of Heartland for the super high school that's being planned. So I think we could just ignore it, but somebody's thinking about that.
Yeah, yep. So then in the Senate proposal, this is what you were talking about, Nancy. So this is 11 new supervisory unions that lay over the existing 119 districts and 52 governing units that we currently have. And in this proposal, there'd be a brief period where districts could voluntarily merge. But at the end of that 2-year period, there would be then forced mergers from there. And that would mean that that new funding formula that's in discussion would kick in at that time, because the funding formula will not go into effect until and if these maps are adopted, because that's the way the funding formula would work. And relatedly, just for the board to know and for the public to know, that when you adopt that funding formula and you put Hartford through it, that is absolutely very significant decrease in our overall budget, which is why the funding formula would not work without the scale that they're looking for. Because with the scale, the concept is that the funding formula would not have as great of a detrimental impact and a decrease to the overall budget. So that's kind of the genesis behind the maps and then the application of the funding formula after that. So, other proposals being considered. This one is gaining some traction, I understand, and I get weekly briefs from the executive director at the Vermont Superintendents Association. Initially, S20, 220, initially what it was going to be was spending caps on districts. So initially, the proposal was that there'd be a hard and fast spending cap placed on districts beginning SY 28-29. And then what it's now morphed into is that there'd be a decrease to what's called the excess spending threshold. So right now, that is set through the yield bill. And what that does is it sets the amount that we spend per pupil. And that changes every year based on yields. And what this would do, what S220 would do, would be to lower that excess spending threshold. And so districts who do spend beyond that excess spending threshold would be penalized. And what that looks like currently is it's almost like, double. Your taxes basically kind of double the more that you go over that excess spending threshold. So the idea here is to contain costs by really leveraging that excess spending threshold, that per pupil expenditure amount. All right, this is where we get to what are some other districts doing, per your point, Colin. So Mountain View's just passed a bond to build what they're calling a regional hub school for their middle and high school. There are some hurdles ahead of them in order to move forward with this plan, however, because they have to raise 25% of that cost through grants, through the state, and through local private funding. The other thing that needs to happen in order for this to move through is they need to get legislation passed that would decouple capital spending from that per pupil expenditure I was just talking about. So we in Hartford, fortunately, we passed our bond before the legislature coupled those things together. So currently, our debt service in our bond is not included in our per pupil funding amount. And right now, that is not possible for a district to do. And given that there's so much need in capital infrastructure, MVSU is certainly not the only district that is kind of lobbying right now to get this decoupled so that they can move forward with making significant infrastructure changes and or building other schools, because across the state we have schools that are very, very old and need a lot of work. So those are some of the barriers, but that's what some other districts are doing. And Colin, you just referred to something I was unaware of as far as that property in Heartland. So where will they go from here? Your guess is as good as mine. And that is the basis of offering an opportunity for some people to have an open discussion about this topic with the public there, and to give the public a real opportunity to engage in that conversation around individuals who are, really pushing some of these topics and ideas. So, this is again my plug to say that if any of you would like an opportunity to talk to the Secretary of Education or to talk to your local representatives, and to talk to, district leaders and school board leaders across the state, this is a really nice opportunity for you to engage in that conversation. So what are some of the things that we in the HSD are thinking about in relation to Act 73 and some of the conversations that are happening more broadly? We're always going to think about how we're serving our students, how we're serving our staff. And so thinking about, you know, what are we offering now, that, again, I would say, I'm, again, of course, really biased, but the programming and the academics and all of what we offer here in Hartford is incredible. And I think regionally, we are a hub for all of those things. And that's true about even our geographic location and transportation. I would say again that, you know, being one of the only districts, well, the only district in the entire state at the convergence of two interstates is pretty darn convenient. And it, you know, but we have to think about the whole picture, right? And we know that we're in this situation with our PCB abatement and remediation situation that is challenging, but we're not alone in that, right? And there are districts across the state that if they're not, you know, addressing PCBs, they're addressing other infrastructure issues that are just as costly, if not more. You know, we've got our bond funds, and we are able to address some of the infrastructure work that we have on that list. And I would say that this community is really engaged and cares a lot about their schools, and, you know, in thinking about losing voice in governance and losing identity potentially through this is, you know, really something to think about and to voice. And, you know, thinking also about the community resources that we have in our area, which is just not true across the state as well. I know, of course, we could always use more designated agencies to collaborate with and to serve our students and our staff and everyone here. But boy, we do pretty well with what we have. All right, last, again, just shameless, here's the press release. I sent another message out through our system to the community on Monday. We'll get it out in the listserv again. We'll get it out through our socials. But please spread the word. Let's get as many people, you know, from this community there, asking good questions, making strong statements, and getting involved.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. I too encourage everyone. It's a great opportunity to either voice your concerns and or ask your questions of some of your decision makers up in Montpelier. And you could throw a question or two at Katie and I, but you know, we're really encouraging you to interact with our representatives and our senators. Let's see. Board opportunity. Hartford Board of School Directors agenda for, this is a new thing that we're testing out, so you guys can let us know. Katie and Aaron and Jacob and I meet once a week to talk about our agenda for the next board meeting. Even though, and we meet on that Wednesday also, that there is no board meeting, just to make sure that we've got everything covered and that we have everything that's on the agenda. So we thought maybe, didn't we? Think maybe that this might be a good opportunity to start thinking about what we would have on the agenda for next week, and to see if there is anything that you as a community would like to see on the agenda, and give it to us and see if we can't work with that. What do you think? Community? I'm asking you. Do you think that's a good idea? Would you like to help in that? Would you be willing to say, hey, we would like to hear this discussed, and give us thumbs up? Yeah?
What would that look like? Like through public comments during the previous
Sure,
meeting?
yeah.
Or what's your vision
Isn't
for
that how
that?
kind of we
They have to
envision
be in
this?
person or online?
Or to talk about it tonight?
I think we were talking about the board suggesting topics,
And
and
seeing if they,
yes.
okay, go, all right, so,
Because there are certain topics that, for example, we know we
Right.
need to have on the agenda,
Right.
right? So for example,
APUs.
I think we know that, yeah, I think we know that, we're gonna start having schools present on their comprehensive needs, assessments and, continuous improvement plans, so we're gonna wanna make sure that we leave that opportunity always on the agenda, as well as, not having an agenda that is, that we make sure that we're balancing out the
Right.
topics so that they're
Right.
palatable for everyone as well.
It's still hearing from you people, you community. One way to engage with the community. So I don't know who's online tonight. Have we got any,
We got 15 people online, I believe, on there.
any hands up on that one?
I see no people raising their hand.
Okay. Policy work.
Nancy, before you go on.
Yes, sir.
I do have something I'd like to suggest. It was an issue that was part of me deciding to run for the board. And I've talked to quite a few people in town as I ran who are interested in pursuing it. And that is the state test scores that were just released for the most current year were pretty abysmal after previously abysmal. And if you look at our annual report, there are other tests that we report results on that also run from good to fair to poor. But what I find really critical is the information that's presented in the annual report is very difficult to interpret. And I think there are probably a lot of people in town who are interested in, parents in town who are interested in figuring out how our district stacks up against other districts and whether we're doing everything that we need to do to improve academic excellence, to create opportunities for excellence. And my suggestion would be that we dedicate a period of time at each meeting when that would be the topic of discussion, but it would be narrowed down probably by Katie to make a presentation on here's the latest NAEP scores, or here's what the state reports show this time, or here's what was presented in here's something that was presented in the annual report last time that we'd like to dive into a little more so that parents and citizens understand what these results really are communicating. And I think it would dovetail exactly with some of the suggestions Katie was made for bringing teacher groups in to talk about what they're up to. I think I'm asking for the same thing that Katie's suggesting. She's getting ready to start. So I want the board to make a commitment that we're gonna reserve time every meeting, or once a month at the very least, that we're gonna spend time paying attention to academic excellence. And it doesn't have to be academic excellence. It can be something that's more palatable to people if that's a problem. Okay?
Any further comments? All right, Jeremy, it's all yours.
All right, so our C5 firearms policy was first warned on March 4th. I move that we accept that policy. And approve, actually, is a better word.
Do I have a
Second.
motion?
Thank you.
Sorry?
Second.
Okay,
Can
thank
we
you.
have-
All in favor?
Can we have some discussion?
Oh,
please?
yeah, absolutely.
We can, yeah.
Okay.
Of course.
So I bit the bullet and read that policy today, and aside from all the blanks where it's just somebody else's boilerplate policy, there was a place in there where the language talked about carrying guns to school or possessing guns in school, and it didn't mention a definition of school, and it didn't say that carrying a gun on a school bus would be considered school. It may be, and my concern may be wasted, but can somebody confirm that the policy language that we've got here starts at the kid's door and ends up when the kid's delivered home, and the time on a bus is also school time? Do you know?
I don't know that off the top of my
I
head,
do
yeah.
know. Any school is defined as being school-sponsored.
Okay.
This is gonna replace it, yeah.
My question is, this policy is to replace the existing policy that is on our website regarding firearms.
Yes.
Jeremy, how quickly is the new policy, once adopted, posted on the website?
That's a good question. I've sent them. I don't think that they're updated and reflected on the site, but I would eventually like to make your website public and move to at least link our policies to that, because I think they're better organized on the Google Sheet.
Yeah, so we're in the process right now. We're hoping to have a July rollout of a new website that will have all of this on it. And I do believe Tessa's been updating as we get them from the board.
Thank you. Okay,
You gotta vote.
Nancy, you want to vote on?
I thought we did vote on it.
Nope, we
God,
just
I'm tired.
moved and seconded.
We got a motion and a second. We did vote on it.
Nope.
Oh, we didn't? All in favor
Aye.
of the C5 firearms policy?
I would like to also warn policy D1, proficiency graduation requirements. That is in the packet.
Okay. Do you want to have that as a combined vote?
Nope, it's a warning.
Oh, okay, never mind.
Point of information.
All right, well, let's vote on this first.
Aye.
Let's get a vote on the C5 firearms policy. All in favor?
We just
did.
See, isn't that what I just said? For the ones of you, let me explain a little bit. I may be seeming a little scattered, and my daughter would agree to that. Last year, about 18 months ago, I was diagnosed with that I had 5 TIAs. It has affected the speech part of my brain. So if I am fumbling around, and the tireder I get, the more pronounced this becomes. So my board has known this. I shared this information with them earlier, and so when they're jumping in to save me, it's because my speech has started to get a little grumbled and due to the TIAs. So my apologies when it gets that confusing, but I'm thinking straight. It just doesn't come out straight. Okay?
I don't think there's any apology necessary. That's just me, but.
Well. So we did vote, right?
Yes.
We can move on to executive limitations.
EL8, compensation and benefits. Katie?
Sure. So included in the packet this evening is Executive Limitation 8, compensation and benefits. I'll read the policy statement and just kind of go through some of the highlights. You all have it in the packet. So the policy statement is with respect to employment, compensation, and benefits to employees, consultants, and contract workers. The superintendent of the Town of Hartford School District shall not cause or allow jeopardy to financial integrity or to public image. Further, without limiting the scope of the foregoing by this enumeration, the superintendent shall not change the superintendent's own compensation and benefits.
We're watching.
Please do. And, I interpret that as the board sets my compensation and benefits. I do not. And that I have a contract that indicates the term of my role here. That my compensation has been established in writing by the board. The board determines, and only the board, if a new contract will be offered and what the compensation will be. that my contract is filed in the central office and can be reviewed by the board at any time you choose to. Payroll data is also available to make sure that there's alignment between my compensation and what I'm actually being paid through pay stubs. And that if ever a change were to be warranted, the board chair would communicate that in writing to the director of finance, and I would not be a part of that. I report compliance. The second of this is that I shall not promise or imply permanent or guaranteed employment. My interpretation is that I will not offer permanent employment contracts for employees. And as we know, that is not my role. Employment is governed through collective bargaining agreements, and those are overseen and negotiated with the board. That annual employment contracts detailing the coming year's wages are offered within budget parameters for those staff members who are being continued through the following year. That it is my role, however, to notify employees who are not being continued due to reductions in force or performance-related matters in a timely manner, as required in the collective bargaining agreement. That I am clear when making temporary, long-term substitute offers of employment, so there's no question about any presumed continuance. That administrative staff in the superintendent's office have generally been offered 2-year employment contracts with salary commitments just for 1 year. And that decisions by the superintendent to renew administrative contracts and establish their duration are based on the needs of the organization and the performance of the administrators. These terms are reviewed annually and meet legal requirements in terms of notice for non-renewal. Non-union support staff employees are offered 1-year contracts reflective of the written terms and conditions governing their employment. These terms and conditions are reviewed annually and replicate the support staff contract terms, but these employees are treated as exempt. I report compliance. I shall not establish or change compensation and benefits that deviate materially from the geographical or professional market median for the skills employed. So my interpretation of that is that I shall not change compensation and benefits for district employees or establish new provisions that are not reasonably consistent with those paid employees performing similar work in other districts deemed comparable. I certify that employee compensation and benefits for all unionized and non-unionized employees meet the above criteria. To achieve this result for unionized employees, the superintendent supports, along with legal counsel, the board's decision-making by providing the board with current and relevant comparative data. For non-unionized employees, similar methodologies are used. That I get this some comparative statewide data from the VSA. They put out a report every year that really is focused on like administrative contracts. And that I believe the levels of compensation in various positions are appropriate and competitive. I report compliance. 4, I shall not create obligations over a longer term that revenues can safely be projected. In no event longer than 1 year, and in all events subject to losses in revenue. I interpret that to mean that I shall not commit to employment consultant and contract terms beyond 1 year, because that is our budgeting cycle. So I certify that obligations for compensation and benefits have not been incurred beyond the limits stated, and that the district's ongoing budget monitoring process is based on an analysis of district revenues and expenditure priorities. And I would present a plan to reduce obligations in the event of an unbudgeted loss of revenue. We have annual audits that look for exceptional changes in salaries and benefits, especially those paid to administrators and finance-related staff as appropriate. Those concerns would be noted by the auditors and they would be reported to the board. Additionally, the auditors choose a small random sample of employees from each category of employment and trace wages and benefits back to budgetary expenditures. Each year, the district establishes contracts with external service providers or consultants that are retained and within the budgetary restraints to provide direct service to students, PD for teachers and administrators, or facilities maintenance. These are need-based contracts and in most cases are either terminated or they would be reviewed annually. I report compliance. I shall not establish or change pension benefits so as to cause unpredictable or inequitable situations. I interpret this to mean that I shall not establish or change pension benefits without board approval, and that I shall not cause unpredictable or inequitable situations to arise or to be maintained. So some of the evidence here are that teachers and administrators are members of the Vermont State Teachers Retirement System. Contributions to the system on behalf of the district for such licensed staff have historically been made by the state's general fund to the retirement system. Beginning in FY16, the district's federal grant budgets were required by the state to fund the retirement contributions for teacher salaries paid in whole or part from IDAB and Title I or II grants. The initial rate being 12.84% of salary in FY16 and is now up to 25.47% in FY26. So that would be any positions that we currently have in our title funds. We're required to make sure that those educators get their retirement benefits. So the district needs to pay for that, for those retirement contributions. Also, teachers and administrators are required to make their own contributions of 5% of their gross wages to the Vermont State Teachers Retirement System. In addition to membership in the retirement system, the district makes a tax-sheltered annuity contribution from 2.5 to 5.5% for administrators based on years of service. I don't alter those limits. And union and non-union support staff are not members of the state municipal employees retirement system. Mandatory employer contributions of up to 11.6% of wages, depending on the plan selected, would have been a district general fund expense rather than a state expense, as is the case with teachers. I report compliance, and overall I report compliance with Executive Limitations Policy 8, compensation and benefits.
Thank you. Do we have a motion to accept this monitoring report from Katie?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Katie. It's time for public comment. So I need to read our statement first, and then as you come up to speak, would you please give your name? The board welcomes public comments in order to accommodate as many community members' voices as possible. Anyone making a comment will be given 2 minutes to speak. This is not a time for discussion, but the board is interested in hearing comments, concerns, and suggestions from the public. You go.
Hi, Nicole Velu, President of the HEA. I'm going to start off by saying that I have said before in previous meetings that I think you all should change the agenda so that public comment comes at the beginning, so that when it's listed as, I think, 6:50, that it doesn't last for hours and hours longer. And I think that deters some people from coming to meetings because this happens. It also feels really disrespectful. So I am here to give you all a copy of an unfair labor practice that was filed with Vermont NEA against the Hartford School Board yesterday on March 17th. So the Hartford Teachers Association negotiated in good faith. I was not one of the negotiators, but we have a solid bargaining team. There's a very prescribed set of rules and regulations that are then combined with ground rules. The teachers made lots of concessions about timing. There were some personal issues from a couple of the board members and some health issues from board members. And then there was a push on the board's part to get the negotiations done before the budgeting season was over. And so we met sort of bam, bam, bam. And not we, but the negotiation team met bam, 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 gave up some nights and some Saturdays all in a row so that we could complete it in time for you all to have the numbers you needed for your budgeting. We stuck to your timeline and we finished our bargaining, and you all had either elected or nominated a couple of negotiators to come to the table and bargain in good faith. And we need you all to take a vote and are asking when you plan on doing that. The unfair labor practice basically says that by not voting, you are violating two particular things. Charge 1, in refusing to ratify an agreement reached and agreed to by the parties, the respondent has engaged in what is called regressive bargaining. And charge 2, by failing to include individuals capable of agreeing to tentative agreements, the respondent has engaged in bargaining in bad faith. And I do want to point out that one of the ground rules we had all agreed upon, or the bargaining team had agreed on. It says, once a tentative agreement has been signed and dated by both lead negotiators, it shall remain valid and binding even if membership of either bargaining team changes. And that's sort of what has happened here. So we cannot engage in conversation with you all about our contract until you make a vote to ratify or not. And the longer you wait, I just want to point out how damaging letters of intent can be for teachers. Letters of intent, principals hear them and they panic because letters of intent are binding for boards, but they're not binding for teachers. When you signed it, your intent was to come based on a package you may or may not get. And so we have until April 1st to sign those letters of intent, but really anybody at any time could go and apply for any job. You are risking losing really good teachers by having letters of intent. It also pushes the hiring season back further and further and further the longer you wait. So the last comment I'm going to make before handing you these copies is, when are you planning to vote?
Thanks, Nicole. Got one? I've got one. Thanks. Thanks, Nicole. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, April Thorburn, homeowner, resident, and parent, and employee. So I just want to reiterate what Nicole said. Having been one of the bargaining team members, we just want you to vote so we can continue on with the process or have a ratified CBA. Second comment, I would encourage you to come up with a timekeeper for your meetings so that when things are gonna take 50 minutes, they take 50 minutes. We do that in our meetings at school, so if someone says, hey, we got 5 more minutes for this section. I heard you talk about community involvement a lot, and I think we had a ton of community here who were ready to speak, and 90 minutes went by before that opportunity was given. So that's all.
Thank you, April. Is there anyone else that would like to speak? Okay, I have a,
Is there anyone online?
yeah, first of all, I'm sorry, I forget.
Did someone raise a hand? Or like in like a minute?
I do have something that I need to read, okay? Thank you, a statement. The board cannot discuss specifics regarding the unfair label charge filed by the HEA other than to say that the board has, through the negotiations, worked towards a fair and responsible agreement, one that takes into account the significant request of the HEA, the needs of the district's students, and the board's fiduciary responsibility to the taxpayers of our district. The board has offered on 2 occasions to come together with the association to attempt to resolve the board's concerns. The HEA turned down these offers. The board remains open to a discussion even as it defends the district before the labor board. That was given to us by our attorney to read, and
I'm
that
back.
is as much as I can say. That's fine. You go right ahead.
Nicole Velu, I'm back. We cannot speak to you until you vote yes or no. I'm not telling you which way to vote. I'm just saying you need to vote so we can come to the table and speak with you, and then we will decide whether this is regressive bargaining or not. But we can't have that conversation with you, and so therefore we had to file because you have, I'm gonna say, January 23rd was when your teachers voted to ratify this contract. You have had since January 23rd. And when I say we negotiated it, it was with your 2 board members. This is a collaboration. This is not us saying to you, we need you to do this. A lot of these ideas came from both parties, and they are all related to each other. So if one thing changes, it's a trickle down. It's a whole package. We cannot speak to you. We have denied it. We have said yes, or we have said no, because we cannot until you vote to ratify or not, because that is the procedure. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Nicole. Does anyone else have any other comments, either from the board or from the floor? Okay, thank you very much. Consent agenda. Someone questioned us about this consent agenda. So I just want to explain maybe to some people that don't have an understanding of why we have a consent agenda, which means that we have put some things together to save time during our meeting, and those things that we have put together have been the appointments, the resignations, the retirements that Katie makes the announcements of, and the prior meeting minutes that need to be approved. At any time that one of our board members thinks that they would like to have further discussion on something that's in the consent agenda, they can absolutely ask it to be pulled, and we can put it into the regular agenda for that to be discussed that evening. But for the most part, the reason we do this is to save time. It's usually things that don't need any discussion. There's no reason for it to keep going on and on and on, and so we combine it so that we can save time. Usually all of this stuff that is in our consent agenda is in the board packet, so the board has had an opportunity to look at it. Katie, I'm going to ask you to talk about when you're talking about the appointments, the resignations, and the retirement, why we put it in the consent agenda, if you don't mind.
Sure. Are you asking why the appointments and resignations and retirements are not necessarily always?
Exactly.
Okay. The appointments and resignations and retirements are not always shared prior to the meeting because it's really fluid, and sometimes we get resignations or retirements, or we want to appoint individuals for positions, and we need to do that every other week in this case, and so that can impact our ability to get a post out, for example, for a position if we have you know, if the board needs to approve a resignation or a retirement, for example. And the same applies to if we're appointing someone, we also want to, you know, start that onboarding process and get people, you know, their contracts.
Right.
Right? So that's the reason for the kind of fluidity of me bringing these names to you as opposed to giving them to you in advance. They're likely to change between meetings.
Okay, thank you. So do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Would you
Oh,
like
wait
to-
a minute, I'm sorry, we got to give you those appointments, don't
Yeah,
you?
that's right.
Katie, would you tell us if there's any appointments, resignations, or retirements?
Yes, I'm going to start with an appointment, and that individual is present, and it's an announcement, which will be also followed up with an announcement by the district, but the Hartford High School Hiring Committee wishes to appoint Amy Molina as the next Hartford High School principal.
Welcome aboard, again. Any resignations or retirements?
We do have 2 resignations. We have Amanda LaFlamme, 4th grade educator at OQS, and we have Amelia Donahue, principal at OQS.
Okay, thank you. Now, do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
A second?
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All in favor, or all opposed say nay. And the motion is approved. Our next board meeting is of all times, April the 1st. And meeting to Val. Who wants to do that tonight? I don't know. Is it in the packet?
Do you have one, Jeremy?
I have an electronic version.
Okay.
The board
Yes,
was
let's speak
prepared
on
for the meeting. Satisfactory. Board's time was spent on ends, not means. Maybe it needs improvement. Each board member was given opportunity to participate. Satisfactory. Board treated all persons with courtesy and fairness. Satisfactory. Board adhered to Robert's Rules of Order. Needs improvement. Board adhered to its adopted governance style. It emphasized outward vision and encouraged diversity in viewpoints. It exercised strategic leadership, not administrative detail. It maintained distinction between board and staff roles. It used collective decision-making, and it looked to the future. Satisfactory. That's it. Move to adjourn.
Okay, do you have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second?
Don't even need a second for that. Thank you all very much.